and welcome to a wonderfully wild and windy Dartmoor. Yes folks, this is Dartmoor, 365 square miles of national park, a place of beauty and barrenness, of mystery and myth, of peace and of power. It's here that the ancient Celtic Dumnonia tribe lived, and they farmed and they fished and they just generally did their own thing really, right down here in the pointy bit of Britain. I'm River Oak. I'm a druid of these parts, and I welcome you in the warmest possible way on a rather dull, dreary, dark December afternoon here on the moor. And to keep warm, we're going to go on a journey, and it's going to be a journey of 12 months, a journey of 4 seasons, and a journey of 8 festivals. So I invite you to come with me, and let's walk the pagan wheel of the year. Now, winter's a great time to seek shelter, and where better than in a beautiful, beautiful wood. It's a well-known fact that druids love trees, so let's start our journey here. Come on. Try to keep up. So, just to recap before we start, a lightning tour of the Wheel of the Year. This is a cycle of 8 celebrations, each around 6 weeks apart, and it melds together the 4 major solar events of the year, that's the solstices and the equinoxes, with 4 ancient agricultural celebrations, each of which mark a really key time in the old North European farming calendar. And we kick off in the 12 o'clock position at Yule. Yule is the Winter Solstice. It's the longest night and the shortest day of the year. By Imbolc, it's still kind of chilly, but we're seeing the first signs of spring, maybe the occasional snowdrop. In the 3 o'clock position, the spring equinox, when night and day are in equipoise. That is Ostara. It's also called Alban Arthan in the Druid tradition. And now we're really beginning to get a feel for spring, aren't we? And there's wonderful things that are happening, particularly hares laying eggs. If you want to find out more about that, you'll have to keep watching. Next up comes Beltane. Oh, blissful Beltane, a time of bonfires and bonking, when we're going to embrace each other and the F word, fertility. Well, whatever did you think I was going to say? And no, you can't just fast forward to Beltane. And after all that excitement, it's going to be time to lounge about and enjoy midsummer, the longest day, the shortest night, with lovely, balmy, sunny days beside the seaside. Ice cream, anyone? But before long, we'll have to get up and do some work because it will be Lunasa, the first harvest, the harvest of corn, barley and wheat. Next we've reached the autumn equinox, a time again of equipoise between day and night, when we start to enter the dark half of the year. This is Mabon, or if you're a druid, you're going to know it as Alban Arthan. It's the second harvest, the time when we bring in the fruit and the nuts. Next up, it's Samhain, that magical time of the year when the veil between this life and the other world is very thin. So thin that we can communicate with the dead, and in fact they may well just come a-walking around. Spooky! And then we're back where we started. We are back at midwinter, the winter solstice. It's Yule again. So I guess that's all fine and dandy, but hey, why bother following the Wheel of the Year? Well, it helps us to attune to the rhythms of nature, to observe her seasons and learn how best to flow with her moods. Let's face it, it's always easier to swim with the current than against it. Who coined the phrase salmon of wisdom? And there are, of course, huge health benefits to be gained from getting back in touch with nature. Not just to planetary health, but to our spiritual health, to our mental health, to our emotional health, and of course, to our physical health. Hey, look at me! So much verve and vigour! And we'll also come to appreciate that actually we're just part of the great web of life. We're not separate from it. And as we witness nature's journeys from birth through exuberant youth to mellow maturity and then that kind of gentle decline towards death, so maybe we'll relax and we'll settle into the understanding that actually we are no different. Our seasons are as inevitable as any other seasons. Well, after that, I certainly need a rest. So I guess now's as good as any time to clarify the meaning of the word pagan. Now, pagan is loaded with meaning, isn't it? It's loaded with quite dark, sinister meanings. But actually, that's not what it means at all. Pagan simply means of the country. It means rural. It means rustic. It means connected to the earth. And sure, one day paganism has probably got more to do with hot chocolate than Holy Communion, but it's certainly got nothing to do with sinister rituals. It's got nothing to do with devil worship. It's simply reconnecting to the traditions of our ancestors. So here we are, midwinter, also known as Yule. Everything looks and feels forlorn, it's dull, it's spent, it's lifeless, it's a time of winter storms and gales, and all about us, Mother Nature, she seems to have fallen asleep, if I'm honest. Trees have sucked back all the goodness from their leaves, they don't need them anymore, so they've shed them, and even the beautiful colour of those autumn leaves is beginning to wane and look just a little bit less impressive, isn't it? And most vegetation is dead, and animals are either they're sheltering or they're hibernating from the unforgiving cold. And even the weak, low-arcing sun seems to have stopped moving in the sky. In fact, for the last 3 days, it has risen and set in exactly the same points on the horizon. Yes, this is the Winter Solstice. It's the longest night of the year, and of course, therefore, the shortest day. Well, it's late afternoon now here in the woods, and it's getting darker, it's getting drearier, it's getting colder, it's getting bleaker. And these were dark, dreary, cold and bleak times for our ancestors. You see, they didn't know that the sun was going to come back. Not like us. For them, all they saw was the sun getting weaker and weaker in the sky, lower and lower. And maybe it was going forever. Maybe the sun god was turning his back on them. They must have sat and wondered, would it ever come back? Would the sun ever return? Hell yeah! For soon they would detect a glimmer of hope on the horizon. Yes, the sun god was moving again, and with him he was bringing the promise of long, warm, bountiful days, days of plenty. No wonder they had a hoolie to celebrate. And not just in ancient Britain, for the winter solstice is likely the oldest celebration in the whole wide world, and it extends back at least to Neolithic times and also across a huge wide swathe of countries and of cultures. Now, in these islands there are a host of ancient sites that are aligned with the solstice, famously Stonehenge in southern England and Newgrange in County Meath in Ireland. Now, I would say Stonehenge is all about the sun setting at the winter solstice, whereas Newgrange is very much the sun rising. In Druidry, we call this time of the year Alban Arthan. Alban Arthan. It means the light of winter. And it also means Light of the Great Bear, the constellation of Ursa Major which sparkles clear on a crisp, clear December night. You may know it as the Plough. Now, bears were a symbol of hope and renewal in the Celtic world. And Artio was a Celtic bear goddess and a fierce defender of her cubs, including her little Artius, who grew up to become a great warrior bear. Both are said to be sleeping still in a cave deep within the earth where, snug and secure, they will one day wake again. Enter King Arthur, galloping in from Camelot. Now, you may have noticed the name Arthur bears, and pun fully intended, bears an uncanny resemblance to that of Artius. For like Artius, Arthur was a fearsome fighter, a great warrior. Myth or man, he was a defender of his nation. And also like Artius, it's believed that he slumbers still, deep beneath the earth of Avalon, where he waits for the clarion call of his people to rise up, fight the foe, and defend his beloved Britain. Well, aside from the hint of a tint of sunshine being present, what is all this business about light? Why is it such a big deal? Well, in parallel with the idea that the S-U-N sun has been born again, runs that of an S-O-N son being born, a divine child. And as you know, for the Christians, this is Jesus. But in ancient Iran and Rome, it was Mithras. The Greeks, they had Attis. And in the Celtic tradition, it was the Mabon, a divine child of promise. And in each case, the child was taken as a sign of light overcoming the darkness, a sign of hope, a sign of renewal, a promise for the future. And the key thing about all of them was they were born at this time, in the bleak midwinter. We have a little bit of a problem here, because it's not quite true. You see, the historical figure Jesus was likely born in the springtime, most probably in April. But because the Christians just couldn't stamp out all these wild, riotous pagan festivities, well, they decided, if you can't beat them, join them. And also, I guess it kind of fitted in, Jesus Christ, the light of the world, light in the darkness. Well, that all fitted in very nicely with the solstice message as well. So, hey presto, back goes the clock, and Jesus is born in midwinter. And as Mark Twain once said, so what were, and of course still are, the key features of these festivities? Fire. Our ancestors just loved fire. Oh, to be honest, it was pretty useful. But we still love fire at this time of year when it's so dark. From Advent candles to the roaring Yule logs and the homely hearth, through all of human history, fire has been used to bring light and heat at midwinter, to warm both the hearts and the toes. Food's been right up there too. Long before Mr. Waitrose devised his first festive advertising campaign, feasting was, whoa, very high on the agenda. And our ancestors, well, to be honest, they were certainly partial to a tipple, long before we evolved sufficiently to say, I'd love a baby sham. Mead. Mead was the drink of the day. Honey-based and likely one of the oldest, if not the very oldest, alcoholic beverage on the planet. And boy, does it still taste good. Druids simply love the stuff. Drink it by the gallon. Yup, Yule was a time to bring the whole tribe together. To eat, drink, to be merry, to be generous, to cement fellowship through the sharing of precious food. And that continues to this day, although I guess food is maybe not quite so precious. And now, as Christmas, well, it's grown into an inglorious gathering of gorging, greed, gluttony and, alliteration. And greenery begins with G as well. Indeed it does. Thousands of years before anyone rocked around the Christmas tree, evergreen foliage carried huge significance as a symbol of endurance, like little ivy, bravely clinging on through thin and thinner. And as a feminine symbol of fertility and fidelity, she would be entwined around the holly to form a wreath, that's male and female, wrapped in a festive lover's embrace. Ooh, hot stuff. To our ancestors, mistletoe, another plant that clings on tenaciously, also promised so much more than a cheeky snog at the office Christmas party. When squeezed, the sticky white juice of his berries was believed to simply ooze fertility, although I can't imagine why, and it would drip down to inseminate the Earth Mother and gift the land with new life. And known as cure-all, mistletoe was also a powerful talisman for healing, for goodwill, for kinship and for a very happy home. So a sprig was often hung in the home all year round. Yes, mistletoe was for life, not just for Christmas. Holly's fresh green leaves and bright berries again symbolised hope and life and protection, and if seasonal house sailing with burning juniper had failed to ward off evil spirits, then it would be good old Holly who was brought in to finish the job. Then, predictably, the church sought to muscle in on the act and tap into the popularity of holly, stating that the spiky leaves signified Christ's crown of thorns and the berries the blood from his broken body. They even wrote a song about it.
Oh, the holly, she bears a berry, as blood it is red, and we trust in our Saviour who rose from the dead. Memo to self, no more songs.
And songs have always been a huge part of the festive season, often as a thinly disguised means of begging when frosted fields meant that farm labourers had not very much work and so not very much food, but also as a means of celebration, of harmonising literally and metaphorically with your kin. Now the Victorians brought a cascade of Christmas carols, some memorable, some, well, rather forgettable. But just like little ivy, paganism managed to creep and cling through the lyrics of these carols. The holly and the ivy being a particularly good example.
Hey, I know a song about that too.
Don't bother. Finally, in the dying years of the last millennium, this art form reached dizzying new heights when it was mistletoe's turn to find the limelight. Oh, Cliff, kill me now.
So just what are the seasonal stars of our spiritual heritage? The signs in the sky that guide and illuminate us, particularly those gifted to us by our ancestors. Well, Druids just love the number 3. So here are my 3 midwinter musings. Well, first, and I guess most obviously, is the message that light always follows darkness. As certainly as day follows night, as flow follows ebb, and as spring follows winter. And in that lies a message of hope. Second, we really do need to learn to read and ride the rhythms of nature. We need to slow down and rest every bit as much as she does. So this should be a season for us to chill out, relax, maybe turn inside, look inside ourselves, see what needs to be lost. Maybe like the trees as they shed their leaves, do we have things that we're clinging on to that we need to let go of? Night. And while we're taking a cheeky peek inside, it's time for number 3. It's time to meet our Mabon, that light inside us, that glimmer, that child of hope, that wonderful exuberance that says anything is possible and that sees only potential, never problems. So we've got to be honest, I guess, and admit that winter is far from over. And there are many, many cold, dark days to come. But hopefully, despite that, this has given you just a little bit of an inkling into the real message of midwinter, the ancient reason for the season. And that is, in all these cold days and in all this darkness, there really is hope. Because over there is light. Yes, there is. Look. There's a light there on the horizon. So I'll be back in early February to celebrate the festival of Imbolc. And hopefully by that time, the worst of the winter weather will be behind us. And we might just be able to sense in the air that first scent of spring. With a bit of luck, we'll spot some snowdrops. And who knows, we might just bump in to the beautiful Bridget. So may you have a very wonderful Alban Arthan, and may blessings fall on your Yuletide celebrations like the very softest of snows. From here in the silent depths of the forest of Dartmoor, in the heart of the ancient kingdom of Dumnonia, I bid you hail and farewell.